The fog hovered over the water, bringing an intimacy to the enclosed white visual cocoon within which his kayak silently slipped along. His body itself was snugly enclosed inside the cockpit, legs stretched out to the footrests, hips and back fitted into the seat, topped off by the skirt, stretched taut along the cockpit rim and around his middle. This small world was all that could be seen as he paddled into the white void. Land was briefly visible as a dark shape that got lighter and lighter until it vanished behind. Ahead was a mysterious, intriguing emptiness of confusing waves that appeared out of nowhere, swept under the kayak, lifting it ever so briefly, and continuing on into the nothingness. The wind pushed the waves from left to right, shifting the bow with every new peak. The absence of reference points left him guessing at how to proceed in a straight line. Should he turn harder into the waves, to correct for being pushed to the left? Or was he overcorrecting? There was no way to know. The fog extended its opaque blanket over the auditory landscape as well. The wind was soft and almost silent. The waves gurgled and splashed lightly under the kayak hull and around the paddles, vortices of dissipating power swirling off of each paddle stroke. Shouted words between the four scattered kayakers hung briefly in the air, only to be muffled into the whiteness. Silence was in command here. Among the disorienting, shifting water and cloaking fog was one small reference point. It rested on the cockpit skirt in front of the kayaker, perched precariously on the swaying kayak. Oblivious to its surroundings and owner, the tiny metal needle within its calibrated casing looked steadfastly to the beckoning magnetic pull of the north. Nothing else mattered except to point north. No distractions, threats, or allures could dissuade the needle from the purpose of its existence, to remain aligned with the invisible magnetic forces to which it was attuned. The size of this tiny needle within its small housing was utterly disproportionate to the size of its importance to this situation, for it offered the only way out of the blind confusion of the fogged-in water crossing. Every couple of minutes the kayaker paused from his rhythmic paddle strokes and glanced down at the compass. The red guiding line had been preset to west-southwest at the beginning of the crossing. As long as the kayak direction was adjusted to keep following straight along the red guide line on the compass, he could be assured that he was going in a straight line across the long water crossing. The needle could be completely trusted to hold its line to the north. That was all good and well theoretically, but it was not intuitively obvious once the kayak was in the fog. Repeatedly it seemed to the kayaker that the needle moved off of the straight line and veered off in the direction of the waves. It took great discipline and trust to resist the voices of the senses and intuition, and to hold firmly to the line dictated by the tiny, wobbly needle. Surely something so small and fragile couldn't be right against the impressive power of the waves and the calculating mind of the experienced kayaker. He had crossed this body of water many times before. He knew what he was doing. He could paddle in his sleep. His senses were tuned to direction. He could just go with his gut, do what seemed best, follow his instincts. But in a deeper place, he knew enough not to trust himself or his siren voices. If he did, he could find himself going in circles, disoriented, reacting to every sound and glimpse of shadow, wearing himself out with every minute of panicked, draining energy. No, this was a time to trust what he knew would get him out of his blindness, even if it seemed precarious. This was a time to trust the small and seemingly insignificant over the large, impressive, and powerful. Hours later, dark shadows approached in the white fog. Blue light began filtering through from above, and the sun brightened. Within minutes, the fog faded behind, and the trees, rock outcroppings, and solid lines of the island took familiar shape. Destination. Success. The blind could now see once again. Trust was vindicated.